Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Not Mike and Mike Show. My name is Brian Nelson. I am not Mike, and joined with me, as always, is my co-host, Mike McLeod. He is Mike, and today we are going to talk to you about Week 8 of the NFL, as well as the World Series and NBA Week 1. But we are back from a 2-week hiatus. I was on my deathbed, folks. I had to cancel last week.
You know what? I don't want to hear it because I came to the studio and I did my work when I was sick. We had to cut a short segment short because I was sick and I had a cough up a lung, and I'm just saying that I work harder than you.
But see, I have empathy, and I didn't want to do to you what you did to me, which was terrible, and it just didn't feel good.
What did I do to you?
Because you cut the segment short. You know,
Okay.
like I was in the flow of things.
Listen.
I was giving my argument. I waited for you to, say your analysis on top of mine, and I just got nothing. I just got a quick throw to commercial break and a cough.
You got your money back on that one when you just didn't listen to me the other week.
That is true.
I think you owe me one at this point.
And hey, I kind of benefited from this.
I'll take it in the form of giving me an extra win this week.
Because in our Not Reality League, 2 weeks have passed by, and I somehow have managed the lead. What do you think about that, folks? And so we'll go through our adds and drops first of Week 8.
Shenanigans.
Because you have the lower record, Mike. You, being the loser so far, have the first move. What move would you like to make?
All right, well, let's recap real quick the moves we made last week, because even though we didn't meet, I'm still picking up Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So the Vikings had come back from bye week. I needed to drop somebody. I dropped Carolina, forgetting that I also had the Bills. Wouldn't have mattered much. They both lost. So I went 2-3 that week. But as it stands, I don't have Carolina anymore. I dropped them. So now the Pittsburgh Steelers are on bye week, so I added the Cowboys as my first move. And then I am going to drop these Buffalo Bills, who are playing your New England Patriots this week, and I'm going to pick up the Kansas City Chiefs.
And my move for the week, I added Atlanta as well as Cincinnati, like you had talked about. Mm-hmm. Atlanta didn't work out for me as well as Cincinnati did, so I'm dropping them as they have a tough matchup against the Green Bay Packers. So I'm going to pick up the New York Jets, who have the easy Cleveland Browns.
I almost picked up the Jets, but they're just Jetsian enough to give Cleveland their first win.
But hey, Ryan Fitzmagic is back at the helm after Geno Smith tore his ACL in his first start back for the Jets, and he said he plays better. He plays better when there's a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah.
And when people doubt him, and he definitely played better. So I'm hoping that translates to this week.
So.
Yeah. All right, so now let's go to our most confident, least confident matchups. Mike, you talked about my New England Patriots.
Yep.
They've been my most consistent team since I picked them up after Week 2. And so them playing the Buffalo Bills, division matchup, New England dominates that division. Yeah. So that is easily my most confident matchup.
And it came out, somebody asked Rex Ryan this week, and he said, maybe if I just stay in this division long enough, Tom Brady will retire, and I'll have a chance at actually beating this team.
Sorry, Rex. I don't think you have any chance of winning anything anytime soon.
Yikes.
Yeah. Who's your most confident matchup, Mike?
You talk about a consistent team. Apparently, the Vikings are a not consistent team because they ended up losing last week to the Eagles in a very, very rough game. But
first loss,
Yeah, okay, but, it's Sam Bradford. But that being said, they're playing the Bears, which still puts them as my most confident matchup. And then real quick, I'll just move through mine. Chiefs over Colts is my second most confident matchup. I think that just the Colts have too many injuries, and the Chiefs are just too solid. They're kind of boring, but you see what they did against a high-flying offense in New Orleans. I think Colts are surprisingly enough, a much worse team than the Saints.
Yeah.
And then I have Raiders over the Buccaneers, even though it's in Tampa. The Raiders stayed in Florida this week as they had just gotten done playing the Jacksonville Jaguars and finally beating an opponent by more than 7 points. So it's an even game with the Buccaneers at home, which means that the Raiders really are a 3-point favorite. And then Cowboys over Eagles. It feels like it's a good move. This is potentially Dak's last game before Tony Romo gets back. And so I think he'll want to go out. If this is his last game, he's going to want to go out in style and beat the Philadelphia Eagles. last but not least, Green Bay over the Falcons. Just no real place to put them. The Falcons are a good team. It's in Atlanta. And we see what Green Bay did on Thursday night last week, but it hasn't really been consistent. So,
and I think Atlanta's still in the midst of being Atlanta, where they
Yeah.
start 4-1, they lost their next two, and now they're 4-3. So
and they have the chance to spiral.
yeah, they have the chance to spiral down and finish 4-12 because of the Atlanta Falcons. My matchups, on the other hand, I really like my matchups for this week. Seattle over the New Orleans Saints. We talked about the defensive woes of the Saints and how the Colts and the Saints both have been kind of similar teams where you put up a lot of points, but at the end of the day, it doesn't get you a lot of wins.
Exactly.
And again, Seattle coming off the tie against Arizona, which is giving me the half game advantage I have currently, folks. My record is 20-14-1, while Mike has an overall record of 20-15. So Seattle,
So gross.
I had Seattle and Arizona. I decided to drop Arizona just to hope that Seattle would pick up the win. If I had kept Arizona, I would have had 2 ties in this league, which would have been ridiculous.
You'd be what, 19, 13,
And 2.
oh God.
Yeah. And so my other matchup, Denver over San Diego. San Diego is always one of those tricky teams where they beat the Atlanta Falcons last week, but they usually trail at the end of the game. Phillip Rivers has to come out with an amazing comeback to win the game, and you can't consistently count on that each and every week, especially against a defense like Denver's. My other matchup, New York Jets over Cleveland. I obviously like that matchup because I'm picking up the Jets.
Yep.
And Cleveland could be getting back Josh McCown, but
I like Josh McCown.
yeah,
honestly.
he's played really well with Cleveland. But also Kevin Hogan looked pretty decent in his short time. I don't think Cody Kessler will be back after he suffered the concussion. So just a lot of question mark. On the IR, folks. And then my least confident matchup is Cincinnati over Washington. Those London games are always so screwy. Usually it's a blowout. It's not very interesting. And I kind of like Cincinnati a little bit over Washington.
In terms of this and also fantasy football, I just stay away from London games. I treat them like Thursday night football games. Like, nobody does well in Thursday night football. Like, historically, nobody, unless your name's Randall Cobb, has like a breakout stat line.
Or Devontae Adams.
Yeah,
Classic.
that's true.
13, 130, and 2 touchdowns.
Owned in 12% of leagues.
Yeah. All right, so that is week 8 for us in our Not Reality League. When we come back, we are going to discuss the World Series. 2 games have already been in the books, and you'll get our opinions on what will happen during the
I
potential
have
next
no
5.
idea what's happening.
Come back and find out what will be happening.
I thought we were just going to...
No.
thought we were going to close it out.
Hi, I'm Melanie Fuller with the Solano College Sports Network. The 20th annual Solano Community College Athletic Hall of Fame banquet will be held on Saturday, November 5th, 2016 at the Hidden Brook Golf Course in Vallejo. Solano College is proud to announce the Hall of Fame class of 2016. Keontae Howard and Blake McAaron of football, Lavella Asuncion of volleyball, game announcer John Canova, and Sharonda Watson and Candace Holmes of women's basketball, with special recognition of the 1995-1996 women's basketball team and the 1989-1990 football team. Tickets are $50. For more information, please contact Claire Gover at claire.gover@solano.edu. I'm Melanie Fuller, and thank you for supporting the Solano College Sports Network, your #1 source for local sports.
And welcome back, folks, to the Not Mike and Mike show. 2 games are in the books with the World Series. What are you shaking your head, Mike?
You couldn't have just let the end of that segment just end with me yelling. That
Mike-
would have been a good send-off into the break.
But I'm on a consistent basis of messing up the outros. How will our viewers not identify our show unless I butcher the outro?
I don't want to hear it.
Just ruin the moment. Unfortunately.
I'm ruining the moment that you ruined.
No, I'm admitting
Okay.
to me ruining Mike's moment. I am sorry, Mike. I'll let you lead the discussion of the World Series 2 games.
I don't wanna. You can lead.
So as my
lead the
punishment, I have to
discussion.
talk about the World Series first.
Yeah.
1-1, folks. Cubs and the Cleveland Indians. With our predictions, I've been really accurate with the NL
have
side.
not.
Game 6 of the Chicago Cubs, and I got that right. But the Indians, they surprised me getting past the Blue
I called
Jays.
for a sweep in the Blue Jays' favor.
And I called for 5 games, so
Yeah.
we were both wrong there. And Cleveland really showed what they were made of in Game 1 with Corey Kluber and the bullpen I believe they shut out the
Yes.
Chicago Cubs in Game 1. And Game 2, Chicago's offense came alive with Kyle Schwarber coming back. He's been really, really solid as the DH after coming back from his knee injury. He became the first player in history to get his first hit of the season in the World Series. And so it's all about timing.
And he's not medically cleared to play left field yet, but he's just going to be a pinch hitter all this weekend. But, it's not terrible.
Yeah, so it's tied 1-1 going back to Chicago. Mike, what do you think is going to happen for the rest of the series?
All right, well, I've been dead wrong in every prediction I've made, pretty much. So I'm just going to say that a team with a C as their logo is going to win at least 5 games.
Or how about a team that hasn't won a World Series in a really long time is going to win a World Series?
There you go.
Because the Cubs haven't for a very long time, and Cleveland's in a drought of their own. So one of these baseball franchises is going to get a break and win their first title in a long time.
Same 2 teams every year. I really can't stand baseball.
Well, same 2 teams every year.
That's it.
Oh, it's the sarcasm. Am I ruining your moments again, Mike? See, we take a week off. I come back from my deathbed and...
I don't even... Show me the deathbed. I don't believe you. I think you just wanted to take a week off and ruin my mood and reputation. Anyway. Yeah, so World Series, they have Kyle Hendricks, who really should win like a Cy Young Award this year. He's 1-1 this postseason with a 1.65 ERA. That's just absolutely incredible. And Corey Kluber, in order for the Indians really to have a chance, will have to... He's already scheduled to play Game 4. He's going to have to play Game 7. They have to win all 3 of those, and then you have to find one somewhere. And I don't think the Indians really trust the rest of their staff. I think that it doesn't even get to a Game 7 because, 2, then 3, and then you have John Lester and Jake Arrieta in 5 and 6 again. And so if you win those 4 games, you don't even get to a Game 7 Kluber start.
Yeah, I think what you're just really stressing is the importance of starting pitching in the World Series. And Cleveland, while they've gotten to this point based off their bullpen, really their weakness has been their starting pitching. And that's not their fault. There's been key injuries to a couple starting pitchers, which has really depleted the starters outside of Corey Kluber. Now you're relying on Trevor Bauer to get a more important role than he's used to, Josh Tomlin as well. By the way, did you see the nastiness that was Trevor Bauer's pinky against that Blue Jays?
Did you see the savagery of the Cubs fan who then bought and mailed a drone to Trevor Bauer and said, "Go Cubs" on it?
And a side note about Trevor Bauer, I feel like he is a victim of Jay Cutler face, where like he's just perpetually just disinterested in things, and even in the middle of a NLCS or World Series game, or ALCS, excuse me, he just looks disinterested, and he just doesn't inspire hope. Like if that was my team, I saw Trevor Bauer walking out there, I'd be like, oh, we're in for a night, folks. And they were in for a night because they lost. So ultimately, Mike, what do you think the outcome is going to be? You believe Cubs, but in how many games?
I think it's going to end up being in 6. I think that Kluber is dominant enough that he could potentially win Game 4 for him. Off the top of my head, I can't remember who the 4th starter for the Cubs is.
Lackey, John Lackey.
Okay. I think Kluber outshines Lackey in that one to keep him alive, but then you have John Lester and Jake Arrieta back-to-back, and you got to play Bauer in one of those 2 anyway. So, it just, you run out of people. And I think that you just win 2 out of 3 twice, and you win a World Series, Cubs in 6.
Yeah, I agree with the same amount of games because I think if Schwarber was healthy and he was in the game, I think it wouldn't go back to Cleveland.
Yeah.
They would win all the games in Chicago because his bat really solidifies everything with their lineup. And we've seen in the NL side of the postseason, the Cubs, their offense has been really inconsistent. And with Schwarber's bat being in the middle, consistently driving in runs, getting on base, that is something that it's a risk in the World Series when you're at home, you don't have the DH. So I think one of those games they're going to miss Schwarber's bat not getting the 4 at-bats instead of just be the pinch hitter.
Exactly, yeah.
So I think that's going to cost one of the games, and then again, that could be the game that Kluber pitches.
Maybe throw him over at first.
But what do you do with Rizzo then?
Second.
throw Rizzo in left field.
Yeah, who cares? It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
I'd rather have.
They've
Rizzo
literally
in that
thrown
lineup.
everybody they possibly could in left field. Wilson
Barry
Contreras.
Bonds can play left field. Anthony Rizzo can play left field.
Or
By
play
the way,
Rizzo at third and play Brian at left. No?
I don't think you want Rizzo at third.
Okay.
I don't think he has the range. They always talk about old man Rizzo. I thought he was like 34.
No.
He's 27.
Yeah, he's just been a failed prospect for a really long time.
Yeah.
So you feel like he's older than he is because he got traded to the Padres and he was terrible there.
Yeah.
And then the GM for the Padres got hired by the Cubs organization and traded for Rizzo. And then, hey, magically Rizzo's Rizzo now. And so that was a great trade by them. And I think really their offense is what's going to carry them and their starting pitching. The bullpens, I think Cleveland has the advantage there because Andrew
Miller has the advantage, but at the back of that pen, you got Aroldis Chapman just sitting there, and if you can just get to the 8th inning, really, I think he can do 4 or 5 outs moving forward for a save if he really needed to. But you get to the 9th inning, it's almost impossible.
So, folks, we have it both Cubs in 6. Take that for what it's worth. We've been
probably be
pretty inconsistent
it'll
all
probably be Cleveland in 5 at this point.
postseason long. So when we come back, we're going to talk about week 1 of the NBA, which just started a couple of games ago, but already some really strange, impressive stat lines that
The reason why I'm making this
about.
face is because I don't like referring to the NBA in weeks.
Okay, day 3 NBA has happened upon us, and when we come back, we will discuss NBA Day 3.
Hi, I'm Anna Patero. I'm a spouse, mother, grandmother, and communication studies instructor at Solano Community College. This year alone, too many students at Fairfield-Sassoon Unified School District began the year with either insufficient textbooks or instructional materials. I'm running for FSUSD Governing Board Area 6 because our students deserve the best education that we can provide. And this entails 3 things. First, a clean and safe environment that is conducive to learning by ensuring that your hard-earned tax dollars for Measure J are spent both constructively and efficiently. Second, we must recruit and retain our excellent teachers by providing them and their students with the resources that they require to perform their duties to the best of their abilities. And finally, we must build bridges between our local businesses and academic institutions with our Career Technical Education, or CTE programs, so that upon graduation, our students will be both career and college ready. After all, the value of our community is dependent on the success of our schools. And that is why I'm asking you for your vote on November 8th. Thank you for your consideration.
Welcome back, folks, to the Not Mike and Mike Show. Day 3 of the NBA has happened today. But we're going to talk about day 1 and 2 first. Day 1, Cavs, Knicks. I wasn't able to watch it because I was at speech practice. What were your thoughts about Cavs, Knicks? Did it go as you expected?
Yeah, but I think that for both of these games, it doesn't really tell a lot about the teams that lost. I think the Knicks are better than, ironically, both games ended in 29-point blowouts. But I think Cleveland, we know what Cleveland is. They have the highest starting 5 in the history of basketball, and you expected them to win this one handily. The Knicks really couldn't get into the flow of their offense a lot, but I still think the Knicks are better than that. I think Melo's better than that. They're better than 88 points a night. It's really hard to tell what the team's going to be in one game. But, you talk about championship hangover from the Cleveland Cavaliers. I didn't see it at all.
Yeah, The Undertaker presented them with their rings. How can you not get hyped for The Undertaker?
Yeah, that's true.
And the game that followed, a lot of scrutiny has gone under one game analysis of the Warriors and the Spurs. What were your takeaways from that game?
Just breathe, relax.
Aaron Rodgers.
In the immortal words of Aaron Rodgers, I watched the game with a bottle of scotch. No, but
and then you ended it with an empty bottle of scotch, right?
Yeah, there you go. No, but the way I see it is the Spurs have had all offseason to prepare for this game. If you remember, the 49ers won by 28 in week 1, and they've been blown out ever since. So one game, 1 week does not determine how well you're going to do or how badly you're going to do. The Spurs, Greg Popovich, it's like Andy Reid out of a bye week. It's just guaranteed. They're going to win the first game of the year.
Yeah, and even Pau Gasol didn't do much of anything.
Yeah.
One for 4, I think 4 points. And the Spurs offseason is...
Zaza.
Exactly. I'm going to get to Zaza. But the Spurs are such plug-and-play system.
Mm-hmm.
The only real differences between last year and this year's team, Danny Green didn't play, so Kyle Anderson started, and that allowed a guy like Jonathan Simmons. Jonathan Simmons, right?
Yeah.
Simmons, the guy that scored 20 points. That's all I know him as.
And the guy that dunked all over JaVale McGee.
Yeah, and Pau Gasol. Those were the only differences. I think people, just because the name power of Kevin Durant, don't realize that they lost about half of the roster of the Warriors.
Can't afford it anymore.
Yeah, so their entire bench was depleted. Brandon Rush is with Minnesota now. Maurice Spates is in LA. And so like even the depth is brand new. So
You're relying on Patrick McCaw to be a key cog, and Ian Clark, who is minus 29 when they lost by 29, and you want him to be an essential piece of this bench. I don't think this roster, as it sits, is going to be the roster that we end the season with.
and the trouble's going to be who would want to trade with the Warriors? Like who would want to give any assets? Like the assets you're getting back is going to be a low first-round pick at best, or for cash maybe.
So you put in like 2 seconds and Verjao for like just a regular piece, like anybody really.
Anybody not named Ian Clark,
Yeah,
pretty much. All right.
throw Ian Clark in there. You can have him.
And I think it also shows what Zaza Pachulia actually is in a game where you have like a bunch of skilled big men. Zaza is going to be outplayed by them most nights. Against the weaker teams, he's going to get you those hustle points and rebounds, offensive rebounds, and he's a decent passer. But I think in those crucial games, it's going to be important for him to play bigger than he actually is.
And he's not a rim protector. And I think eventually, as much as it pains me, JaVale McGee will get the trust of this coach and Steve Kerr and become really the backup center and be the shot blocking presence. I wouldn't even be surprised. Don't quote me on this, folks. JaVale McGee starts before the end of the year, not because of injury, just because of necessity.
You know who would be an interesting piece? I don't know if this is ever like a rumor out there currently, but I think maybe like a Tyson Chandler, who's in purgatory with Phoenix right now, and they're not going to do anything. They're going to be sellers at the trade deadline. They're going to be one of the weakest teams in the West. If you could get a defensive rim protector like Chandler, obviously doesn't have the passing that Bogut does,
so you
but you need that
with
defense.
You package him with maybe Zaza and like Kevon Looney.
Yeah,
So
former
they,
first-round pick.
so they get a guy that really is not going to be, or maybe you'd package David West or somebody who's on like an expiring contract plus a good piece for the future.
Yeah, so I think they're going to need to make moves. And then let's talk about some of the other interesting stat lines that occurred during this first couple days of action. First, Anthony Davis, 50-plus points. How many rebounds? 15, I think, rebounds, 7 steals, 5 blocks.
4 blocks.
4 blocks. And that stat line had never happened in the history of basketball, but they still lost. And I think it goes back to the conversation we keep having of there are some great players in all of these sports that are never going to sniff a championship. And
they're all the Mike Trout of their respective sports.
Yeah, and Anthony Davis can't get any help from the New Orleans Pelicans front staff to get him any sort of help around him.
They've tried and just failed miserably. And I think Tyreek Evans needs to be the point guard.
Yeah, we've had that discussion on this.
I'm not going to go back over it, but like if you can have, and we'll get into it in a bit, James Harden have 17 assists, why can't Tyreek Evans have 17 assists?
Well, because whoever unless he passes to Anthony Davis every single time. Well, yeah.
That's 84 points.
All right. So let's talk about James Harden. With the new look Rockets, he is now the point guard for them, and he had 17 assists. I think he had like 13 in the first half.
Yeah.
Plus he had
12 in the first quarter.
And so 30 points to add on to that.
Yeah.
But they still lost. And like that, you got to be very excited for if you're in Lakerland with new coach Luke Walton.
Yeah.
And I think the system that he's implementing with all these young athletic pieces, Jordan Clarkson, D'Angelo Russell, Julius Randle looked really good.
Yeah.
And so you got to be excited for the future of the LA Lakers. And we're not even talking about their first-round pick, Brandon Ingram.
Nope.
So get experience this year, and I think the Lakers' future is really bright right now.
Yeah, as much as it pains me to say it, I think that the Lakers are going to be a real dominant team in 2 or 3 years. I think they just need to get a real quality big man in the next draft. I think that they'll end up being like maybe the 10th team in the West this year, just, again, off of one game, so it could be tragically different in a week, but or day 10, I should say. But I think that if they'll have a lottery pick. They're not going to the playoffs this year. It's just too deep in the West.
Yeah.
You get a lottery pick, you get maybe some foreign guy that can shoot a three, and you build on that, and I think you have a real good starting rotation with a couple of really good bench pieces. You got like a 7-man playoff rotation right there.
And we talked before the filming, Lakers and the Kings are at the top of the Pacific Division.
It's 2001.
Yeah. How old were you in 2001?
7 years old.
7-11. There you go. All right.
God, you're old.
Yeah. Yes, I am.
Yeah, and I was actually on the internet, and they're like, yeah, it's the second coming of Robert Horry, and it's going to be a missed rebound from DeMarcus Cousins and Willie Cauley-Stein to result in a Jordan Clarkson big shot Jordan to seal the deal, and the refs are going to run wild again, and all the Kings fans in the chat said, you know what, we'll take it just to be in the playoffs.
Be back, yeah. And they got their new building too.
Yeah,
you know, be excited about.
I heard it looks good.
New UFC event coming up December. Yeah. Let's also talk about, I think, an interesting evolution of basketball is how many of these big men are shooting threes.
Yeah.
Like, when Joel Embiid made his debut, I had no idea he was going to shoot a three. Like, did you have any idea what was coming?
I did not at the time. Do you know how he found his shooting form?
He had a lot of time to practice with like his socks and a laundry basket.
Obviously. He said that he just looked at white people on YouTube. Like, just normal white people, not pros. He didn't look at, like, training videos. He said he just looked up white people shooting on YouTube. And he's like, yeah, they keep the elbow in, they follow through really well, and that's how I learned to shoot.
You could have just, like, hung out with Kyle Korver for a really long time,
honestly,
or J.J. Redick, and just hope, like, the diffusion of three-point. Yeah, just hope that you get a three-point touch. But I feel like this is like the start of this new era of basketball where all of these 6'10", 7-footers have guard skills. And I feel like Giannis Antetokounmpo for the Bucks is a point guard now at 6'10", 6'11".
I think it's a product of, because you saw it really first with Anthony Davis, where these kids played guard their entire lives, and then they hit puberty and they grew 8 inches in the summer, and now they're getting forced to play power forward, but they still played that entire summer as they were growing, so they kept their dribble skills. It's not like Shaquille O'Neal when you've been the biggest kid in your class the entire time. That's why I can't dribble. I was big my entire life.
You're just backing people down.
Yeah, it's all I ever did. From the time I was 8 years old, I was part of a team we called ourselves the Twin Towers in 2001. It was a summer league. It hadn't happened yet.
Okay, so. That's good. Do you want to talk about my basketball career?
Do we?
I don't think we have enough time to talk about.
Oh, it's too long.
Yeah, too extensive and too many accolades. So it's been exciting.
Participation trophies.
3 days of NBA basketball. We're excited for what's to come, and we are excited that you have watched our show back after a week off. And so we've talked about the NFL, Week 8. We talked about the World Series, Cubs in 6 for both of us.
Yep.
And Day 3 of NBA. So thank you for watching. I am Brian Nelson. This is Mike McLeod. And we will see you next time.
If you have an interest in a career in sports broadcasting,
whether it's behind the scenes or on camera,
then this is the class for you.
Class is held every Wednesday from 1:30 to 4:30 in room 121 alongside the library building.
For more information, contact Greg Poff. That's me at solano.edu.
we hope to see you here next semester. And remember,
It's more than just sports. It's an education.